sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun, even when it's not shining.
I am the Reverend Dr. Robert Magola, Rector of St. George St. Barnabas Episcopal Church. Our church is located here in West Philadelphia, where over the past few years, we have had an increase in deaths due to gun violence. This is heeding God's call to end gun violence's memorial to the lost. And each of these t-shirts represents a person who was shot dead in Philadelphia during 2019.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Sarah Hedges, and I'm the chair of the Anti-Gun Violence Commission for the Episcopal Diocese of Pennsylvania. When I was thinking about what to say for this Good Friday walk, I kept coming back to the question of when will enough be enough? When will the American faith community say enough to gun violence? And I realized that so many of you watching this, you have heard these statistics. You do believe that it's enough. I think the one that I have to share is that currently gun violence is the second leading cause overall of death for children in America, and it's the first leading cause of death for Black children, which blows my mind. And even with this fact, we still have not stood up and said enough. Life. And so on Good Friday, we Christians follow by moving closer, by moving towards the cross, by moving towards the world's suffering, even though it scares us and distresses us and overwhelms us, even though it breaks our hearts. Because we follow Jesus' example when he taught us that we will never change anything that we are not willing to first face. And so we do. We move towards that which is so hard. We let it break our hearts, and then we say enough, trusting that God will meet us there, and through God's grace and our actions, we will move into something new.
I believe in life, even when I don't feel it.
I am a rabbi, and I'm in the middle of Passover week, the week that celebrates ancient Israelites leaving slavery in Mitzrayim, the name for ancient Egypt, and starting their walk towards freedom. The moment we are marking is a great unknown, as the Passover is a powerful time on the Jewish calendar. And Good Friday? Good Friday is a powerful time on the Christian calendar. And while it's completely different from Passover in some very significant ways, they are also so similar. Today, Good Friday is the great unknown. All hope seems lost. Death has overtaken everything, even God. There is no knowledge of what will happen in the future. We are here on this most sacred and painful day to mourn those who have been killed by guns, a plague in our country and our world. These are the words of Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Ro'i Lo Echsar, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. V'shavti beveit Adonai la'orech yamim. In these words, we find hope and we are given direction. How can we move beyond the place of fear and death? God for me is that force in the world that moves me to perform acts of justice and to know that while I am not in control of the world, and while I can never know what the future may bring, I can make a difference when I take the memory of those who have been killed by gun violence and I use it to do my own work against guns, against gun violence. I can stop fearing the evil and can find the comfort that I need to feel the goodness and mercy that are within and around me. May this Good Friday and may this Passover be a time that spurs us on to the work that can help us all together create a healthy and safe world. We so desperately need it. May we know that while we are doing our work, we are being held. Amen.
Hi, I'm Shane from The Simple Way, and I want to tell you a little story about one of the most powerful Good Friday services I've ever experienced. It was a few years ago, and in the weeks before Easter, we had another tragedy. I can remember in the middle of the night hearing the gunshots, and I ran outside, and a young man had fallen right in front of our house. He was still alive, so I grabbed his hand. I started praying for him, and we, called 911. The ambulance came. He was still alive when they took him away, but we found out the next morning that he had died, and his name was Papito. He was 19 years old. It was after Papito died that I think something in me sort of triggered, and I remember the words of Dr. King where he said, we're all called to be the Good Samaritan and lift our neighbor out of the ditch on the road to Jericho. But after you lift so many people out of the ditch, you start to say, maybe we need to rethink the whole road to Jericho. We got to do something about why people keep landing in the ditch to begin with. And we joined Heeding God's Call and so many other wonderful leaders in the city. And we decided to have our worship services in the street. In fact, we had our Good Friday service in front of the Shooter Shop, one of those notorious gun shops, one of the worst for selling guns that are used in crimes on the streets. And the young men in our neighborhood that Good Friday, they carried the cross. They set it up in front of the gun shop, and then we had our service there. After the service, this woman came up to me, and she was very emotional, and she's sort of shaking, and she says, I get it. I said, what? And she said, God knows what it feels like to lose your son. It was Papito's mom. And what she said that day is one of the most powerful articulations of the gospel, that we have a God who knows what it feels like to suffer, to be a victim of violence, to lose God's own son right now in our world, even in the midst of this pandemic, but also those who are suffering from the pandemic of gun violence that's taken so many lives. And we also remember that Jesus absorbed all the violence of the world and made a spectacle of that violence to subvert it with love, to triumph over it with life, with an empty tomb. And so that's what we remember this Good Friday, is that love is more powerful than hatred, faith is more powerful than fear, and life is more powerful than death.
I believe in
Hello, friends. Thank you for taking part in our virtual worship. I'm Brian Miller. I'm Executive Director of Heeding God's Call to End Gun Violence, the faith-based and grassroots and proudly interfaith and multi-ethnic organization based in Philadelphia, devoted to reducing and preventing gun violence. We hope you found the event meaningful and inspiring, and you'll seek to learn more about our many activities. Help support them through a donation and provide us with your contact information so that we can stay in touch with you and perhaps have you come to one of our events, we hope. You may learn to do any and all of the things I've just mentioned from the slide that'll follow this very brief talk. In closing, I wish to thank all the people who provided recordings to us to be put in this, and especially Reverend Robert Magula and his parishioners from St. George and St. Bernard Episcopal Church in West Philadelphia. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.